Hey, what's up, everybody? Nick Shaw here with the weekly webinar. It's 4 o'clock on Thursday, so we're just getting started. And I'm, of course, just going to pull it up and make sure everything's working on my end. All right. The weekly webinar. All right, I hear myself talking. It should be good. All right, and as always, feel free to drop questions in anytime. I have a whole handful of stuff that I wrote down from the forums that I'd like to cover. But again, we'll give it a minute or so before we get going. But if anyone has questions, feel free to fire away. All right. So real quick, kind of general overview of RP Plus and RP, any new stuff coming out. So the weightlifting strength templates are very likely coming out after the CrossFit Games. I will be in Madison for a couple days next weekend. So if there are any viewers here that will also be there, please say hi to me or Mike. Mike should be giving a little talk / presentation at the CrossFit Games. I'm not sure on the exact specifics, when and where yet, but he should be there. We got a new big-time CrossFit athlete, Sarah Sigsman-Daughter. So we're hoping she does really well at the CrossFit Games. She should do really well. She's down training with Rich Froning. So we're excited to see her perform. She's kick butt athlete, of course, and got those crazy Icelandic / Viking genetics, which are tough to deal with unless you're dealing with other Icelandic females, which seem to be some of the best in the entire world. So that's all cool. We're going to be having Jacob Sipskin of TZ Strength hop in RP Plus every now and again and do some webinars like this for any of the CrossFit questions. We're also going to be picking up his book and selling on the RP site. We're really excited for that. Jake's a really smart guy. We all know him personally at RP. His book's really good. It's been sold on Juggernaut Training Systems for a while. Really well received, really well thought out and all that. So for the CrossFit crowd and RP Plus, you should be really well taken care of coming up here soon. We're going to get him in here doing some webinars and probably maybe some other stuff every now and again. So that's all pretty exciting. But all right, so here we go. That's just kind of a quick overview of all that. In terms of RP Plus, what's new? Paul Salter gave us a bunch of his videos, so that's really cool. They're a bit more beginner, a little bit quicker, easier to digest than some of the content we normally have on here. So that's always good. And again, you can sort through the beginner advanced tags to help you go through that a little bit quicker, which is always great. So if you are a beginner, you definitely have a lot of great content that's catered towards beginners. Or if you're a bit more advanced and you like the more in-depth stuff, we have plenty of that as well. So again, the whole idea of RP Plus is something for everyone. So keep that in mind. And if people, if people say, oh, RP Plus is really mostly just advanced stuff, that's not true at all. We definitely have a lot of stuff catered towards beginners, and we have the forums, which if you're new to RP or if you have questions on the templates, you can ask literally as many questions as you want in there, and Tiago and Tara will answer them. They are fantastic with doing that and keeping up. So take advantage of it. Use it as much as you can. We'll keep up with the 2-time-a-week weekly webinars. James has been traveling a little bit. He's in New Zealand. He should be back with Mike next week. So normally the two of them will be doing it for as long as they kind of live near each other. Mine will keep being each Thursday. Again, I'd love to see some feedback if people have it in the forums to let us know what other time might work. I know evenings probably going to be the best time, but we already have one in the evening. So again, we'd like to give people some variety for all the international folks so they can attend the live webinars. So that's just kind of a quick overview of where we're at with RP Plus and stuff. So again, just keep us posted. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in. But if not, I'll go ahead and get started on some stuff that I've seen in the forums and just start covering that. So one thing I noticed, I think it was in the Q&A thread for Mike and James, was someone talking about the male physique templates, and they wanted to know about the, reps in reserve, how you kind of count that and track that. And it's actually a cool time to talk about and mention that I'm going to be tracking most of my own training in the log section. So there's now another category in the forum. So, you got CrossFit, you got, strength, you got diet, you have miscellaneous. Well, now there's another section in there just called logs. I'll be tracking my training in there. So if anyone has questions, feel free to drop in there. On top of that, we'll probably get some more different RP coaches in there, dropping some knowledge and training in there as well. But if you kind of look through my stuff, I'm running the Male Physique Templates myself, and how I kind of do it is I more or less know. I mean, most people running the Male Physique Templates, you're not new to training. So the idea is you should be pretty well used to, if you have a particular weight, kind of how many reps you can do. Now, again, it might be a little bit different because, you're using full range of motion on everything, proper technique, no swinging, no cheating, anything like that. So hopefully that's not too different than what people are, or how people are already training. But if it is, it should be a pretty easy adjustment. But, how do you kind of track or measure reps in reserve or the from failure system? Well, it's kind of, think of it this way. If you pick a weight that's about your estimated 10 RM, well, 10 RM would be to about failure. So if you're doing 3 or 4 reps away from that, you're probably going to be hitting, 6 or 7 reps. Does it have to be perfect like that every time? Not necessarily. What I like to do is, I'm pretty well versed with, my strength, and I've been lifting for, I don't know, probably at least over half of my life. I'm almost 30, and I've probably been working out or, lifting weights for 15 years. But anyways, I kind of know if I have a weight, I have a pretty good idea in my head, I'm, doing 225 for 10 on bench, maybe at the top end, I could hit 15 reps or something like that with good form, with a nice little pause at the bottom. So if I'm going about 4 from fail, I know I'll probably be in like the 10 to 12 range, and that's probably a pretty good spot to start. And what I kind of do is I try to pick a weight in week 1 and the number of reps that's pretty conservative, so that I pretty much know in my head that 3 weeks from now, when the weight's a little bit heavier, volume starts going up, that I can match those same reps. So is that kind of the 4 from fail? Well, I mean, maybe not perfectly spot on, because maybe I hit 9, but 12 would have been my true max. But I'm pretty confident that I can hit 9 every single week in the Male Physique Template. So that's kind of how I approach it, and something that I think is pretty easy. But just as a general rule, how do you track it or whatever? I mean, you should just kind of know when you're lifting. You kind of hit a point where you're like, oh, okay, can I do 4 more? If the answer is I'm not sure, well, it's probably a good spot to stop there. You don't want to find yourself just oh, I think I can do more and more and more and more and more, and then you stop, and all of a sudden you're like 1 from fail or something like that, because you don't want to be too aggressive in week 1, because you can always be a bit more aggressive in the later weeks. But again, if you're probably just coming off an easier week before starting the Male Physique Templates, or you're coming off a planned deload if you are running the Male Physique Templates, back to back or whatever. So if that is the case, then all you have to do is start pretty conservative, and chances are you'll be able to match those reps all throughout, and you'll be increasing the weight on the bar, the volume. And so if you can do that all throughout, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. So I think that's kind of simplistic approach to it. Again, don't just go too crazy, especially in week 1, and save a little bit, and just know that you have several reps sort of in your tank left to go, and you're not going all the way to failure. So people always ask me, well, how do you do it? Well, again, don't train until failure, until week 3 or 4 or whatever, and then you can start pushing it a little bit. But don't go too crazy just starting off right off the bat. And again, you can kind of follow along in my training log. I've already posted a couple workouts that I'm personally running in the Male Physique Templates. I'm running the arm shoulder emphasis 1, so you can follow along in there. As a side note, I've just started doing a little bit of cardio as well. It's been a while since I've done that. Just more for general health and fitness. I may start trying to branch out a little bit instead of just purely bodybuilding type stuff, which is a real and it's tough. It's a real eye opener, really, really humbling. I started swimming and running a little bit, and man, not having done it in a really long time, it's a rude awakening. So it's kind of fun, a little new, different challenge. So again, you can kind of follow along in my training log if you'd like to, and ask questions in there. So hopefully that's a good start on the male physique templates. Another point that I had written down, someone in the forums and RP Plus forums asked when to move tabs on the cut templates. Here's the thing, everyone, again, people love set in stone answers and they don't want to kind of have to think too much about it. If it's a template, that means you have to do some thinking yourself. It's not one-on-one coaching where the coach is going to tell you exactly what to do, which we do have. If you don't want to do any thinking and you want it all laid out for you, you should really do the one-on-one coaching. Because if you get the templates and you don't want to do any thinking, well, you may have kind of a rough go because they're designed for people that are experienced dieting, the more advanced templates anyways. The healthy diet templates, you don't really have to worry about any of that because there are no different tabs. It's just mostly one tab, and then if you want to lose weight, you just drop out the snack. So it's literally the simplest instructions in the world. But how do you know when you should move cut tabs? Here's the deal. You want to eat as much food as possible while still losing weight and still reaching your goals. So what that means is you stay on the tab with as much food as you can while still losing the however much weight you want to lose per week. So what does that mean? That means if you're on base and you're losing weight, you stay on base. It could be 1 week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 4 weeks, it could be 5 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, it could be the entire cut, it could be the entire 3 months. If you're continually losing weight on base, then you never need to move from that. Why would you want to reduce food intake even more if you're already losing weight? That doesn't make any sense. So you want to eat as much as possible while still losing weight, and the inverse would apply if you're trying to gain weight. If you're gaining weight, on base or mass one, do you need to increase and bump that up? No, you do not need to. On massing, you want to eat as little as possible while still being able to gain weight. There's no need to overshoot it because if you do, you risk gaining too much fat. If you do the opposite on cutting and you start cutting too much too soon, well, the risk then is, of course, performance drop-offs and possibly losing lean tissue along the way, which really there's no good idea or need behind that. Maybe some really rare exceptions, but again, so if you're on base and you're losing weight, stay there. You stay there for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks and you're still losing weight, great. You probably have really good genetics or whatever. Maybe you just didn't have a great diet before, but again, stay there as long as you can. There would be no need to move on to the next tab. So if you're on a tab for 1 to 2 weeks and your weight's not really dropping at all, assuming that you're not cheating on the diet, be realistic, be honest with yourself. If you're cheating on the diet, well, then it doesn't really matter because you're not being consistent anyways. So address that first before cutting out more template food. Hopefully that's a no-brainer and obvious, but some people may have difficulties with that. So yeah, if your weight stalls out for 1 to 2 weeks, and again, you are quite confident that's not just water weight fluctuations, hormonal fluctuations, more so for females when it comes to that. But if that's the case and you're not losing weight and you're being pretty strict, you're not cheating, it's not water weight fluctuations, then you go to the next tab and you can balance it out between 1 or 2 weeks. It should be at least 3, 4, 5, different weigh-ins, different data points. Average those out. If it's not going down at 1 to 2 pounds per week, it's time to move to the next tab. It could be possible that you move to the next tab and it still doesn't go down all that much. Some people, are going to have a harder time losing weight, and that's just a fact of life. That's a reality. And if that's the case, well, give it another 1 or 2 weeks, and then you just start going down again. You just move to the next cut tab. So, some people like to think that, I stay on each tab X number of weeks. That's not how it works. I mean, you could do that, but again, it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of silly. You go based on your own feedback. You go based on your body weight. So if your body weight's responding great and you're losing, well, then you never need to move to another cut tab if you can lose like that. Some people can, so that's great. But again, it's individual. There's no set in stone answer that hey, base is X number of weeks, cut 1 is X number of weeks, cut 2. It doesn't work like that. It's not like 3, 3, 3, 3 for a 12 week cut. It's a template, so it's designed. You have to base it on your own feedback. People like to kind of forget that point, that it's based on your feedback. yours. It's not based on someone else. It's not based on Joe or Susie or Sally or John or whatever. You go based on how you respond. So your best friend may be able to stay on base for 6 weeks and they lose weight the entire time. Whereas you can't lose weight, you can't lose weight on cut 1 or maybe even cut 2 sometimes, which does happen. Especially maybe even for people that have been dieting a lot, or this is their second or third time through the RP templates. The weight loss is just going to get harder and harder to come by as you lose more and more. So again, there's no set in stone answer. Don't expect there to be. You refer to the how-to guide, and again, it breaks down that chart based on how much weight you lose. So again, if you're not losing weight, we'll go to the next cut tab. Give it a week or 2, balance it out. If you're truly not losing, all right, we'll move on. There's, again, no set in stone answer. So don't kind of hold on to that thinking that it's, going to be so, black or white when it comes to X number of weeks per tab. So that was the second point that I had. I think this might have been the same person, but they asked about cheat days. And so someone was adamant that you need cheat days to kind of shock your system or whatever. That's mostly BS. Here's the kind of benefit that a cheat day could have. You just get really kind of just burn out from dieting, but maybe you have a very specific task or a goal. I remember when I was cutting for a bodybuilding show, I had a couple of cheat days. It's because my weight loss was going along fine, and it was just such a long and hard cut that I was literally going to lose my mind. And so every now and again, I would have like a big cheat meal, or it wasn't even a cheat day. I mean, the idea of a cheat day is pretty ridiculous because you literally probably consume, 5,000-10,000 calories in one day, and then all of a sudden you could literally gain 1 to 2 pounds of tissue from that many excess calories. So the idea of a cheat day, an entire day of just cheating and eating whatever you want, is pretty ridiculous. It's might give you a momentary boost in metabolism, but again, that is most of the time not going to be worth it. Another downside of an entire cheat day is your cravings are probably going to be through the roof the next day. I remember that. It's pretty real. So keep all that stuff in mind. The idea of a cheat day is pretty silly. Now, a cheat meal every now and again, I think that's a totally different story. It's pretty tough to do too much damage from just one meal. Now, sure, of course, there are outliers out there who might be able to eat 10,000, 50,000 calories in one meal, but that's pretty, that's way past ordinary in terms of that. So again, not probably recommended for a full cheat day. But yeah, the idea behind those is mostly just a mental break. It's probably not going to be to do too much to your metabolism and do any magic tricks or anything like that where you all of a sudden start losing weight. You could see a couple-day bump where you actually do lose a little bit more weight after. I've had that happen with some clients where they can't lose weight, they can't lose weight. They say, all right, let's end the diet. Let's just start maintaining for a while. They start eating a little bit more. The scale, temporarily goes down for a few days. But then it usually comes right back up and starts to even out. So again, cheat meals, cheat days. Cheat meals are probably a good idea if you can handle it and don't go too crazy and don't gain too much weight from it. And again, it's mostly a psychological thing. It's just a little bit of a mental break from dieting, so you don't go too crazy when calories start to get restricted too much. All right, so another topic that was addressed, again, if people have questions, feel free to fire away. I don't currently see any, so just keep going along the points that I have. Meal replacement shakes. So someone asked if they should just have whey. You can. There's nothing too wrong with that because chances are you're going to have some fats or fiber or something along with it, which will, help balance things out because whey gets into your system really quick. So if you have some other stuff, it may balance it out a little bit. Here's the deal. If you can do it yourself and you make your own meal replacement shake, try to do whey and casein instead of just whey. Again, it's not, huge differences, but if you can add some casein in there, again, it sets into your system, takes a little bit longer to get in your system, so it's kind of a good mix between the two. It makes like almost a perfect meal replacement shake because you have whey that gets into your system really quick. You also have some casein that's going to hang out in there for a while and it's going to slowly get into your system. So usually that's a pretty good idea. or, you know, even something like a ready to drink shake, like a muscle milk, is probably gonna have some fats and stuff in it too, so it's gonna slow things down. So that's probably a pretty good choice, and it tastes delicious, of course. Um, Again, if you are doing meal replacement shakes, something to consider are the trade-offs involved with it, in that if you are drinking more liquid calories versus eating them, you're going to be a bit more hungry, chances are, because it's much less filling. Although the convenience factor and being, you know, really simple and easy to drink and consume is a good benefit there as well. In terms of the pros, in terms of the cons, you're going to be hungrier, and you know, probably not a ton of, you know, nutrition, you know, not a lot of vitamins and minerals in there, chances are, if you're doing that. So, you know, no veggies or something like that. So again, you'll be hungrier. So you could crave some foods a little bit more and be hungrier and things like that. And it's typically not too great on a diet. So keep all that in mind as well. Meal replacement shakes are totally cool, especially if you find yourself too hungry. Again, sometimes it's just hard to get in all that lean meat. So if people do need a little break, that's where they come in handy. Or if you're at work, you know, and you can't, I know your job calls for, you know, you can't have breaks every couple hours or something for a few minutes. And again, what do you do? Well, meal replacement shake's actually a really good idea. In college, I used to wait tables, and I was, you know, super OCD about my diet and all that. And so I would either keep like a protein bar or something like in the back, and or I would basically blend my shakes in the morning, and I would, or I would just go buy like a mass gainer shake, and I would just carry it in with me, and I would just like keep it somewhere kind of out of sight so no one could really see me, and I would sneak off, and literally, you know, in between waiting tables, I would sneak in the back, you know, have a whole blender bottle filled with whatever, whether it was oats and peanut butter and, you know, whey protein, or if it was like a couple scoops of mass gainer or something, I would, you know, have it already made, already shook up, keep it in the back so no one could see me. I would sneak back in there and basically chug it as fast as I could. So in like 10 seconds, I was done with it. And then I was right back out there working. So kind of where there's a will, there's a way. So meal replacement shakes can come in handy that way. Yeah, I was kind of the meathead there at the job where I worked. So I did that pretty much every single day. Because I would train in the morning, so I wanted to eat a bunch while I was on shift. Sometimes I would work doubles, so I was literally working from like 10 or 11 a.m. to, you know, 8 or 9 at night. So I had to kind of do it. I would get one lunch break, so I would make sure to sit down and eat a bunch of food then. But usually somewhere in the morning, I would either have the shake, and then I would have lunch in the middle, and then you know, a protein bar or something like that, or kind of flip those two around. But I would always find a way to eat every few hours. And especially if I was massing, because it's really hard to get in those calories. So it's a good thing to add in there. All right, so I found, I was just kind of going through the diet section of RP Plus, so I found a handful of good questions in there. Someone asked on the idea of raw versus cooked veggies. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. So if you wanted to be technical and super precise, probably raw and everything is probably technically correct, but is it a lot easier to do cooked foods? And again, the idea, you know, the veggies aren't really like a super specific measurement. It's, you know, 1 or 2 handfuls or something like that. So grab some veggies and eat them however you need to. Again, that's more or less what you're after. It's going to help with hunger. You're going to provide some, you know, good nutrition, vitamins and minerals, and fiber. So those are the main things you're after with the veggies. So again, again, people kind of get too technical at times, which is great for some people, but some people get too technical and they don't even let themselves get started because they're lost in such small minor details that they miss the idea of consistency and just sort of getting after it and actually putting the plan into place and using it. And so again, if you're too stressed about that stuff, don't be. It's not a good idea to be stressed out really about anything when it comes to diet. Just relax, do the best you can, be consistent. So keep that in mind. Let me just take a peek here. So again, Thursday at 4 is not usually the busiest time for questions, so we'll look into that Again, if people have specific times they think might work better, that would be fantastic. But all right, so I'll get back into it. I have one more point to touch on. So we get into this and there's still no questions coming in from people. We're about 30, 35 minutes in. We're only about 25 minutes in right now, so it's 4:25. But I'm coming up on pretty much my last point here. So without some other questions from folks, we might end a little bit early today. But again, in the diet section, someone was asking about, if they can fit in cheese every now and again to their diet, because it's not technically listed on the template, dairy products are not. Here's the deal. Yes, the template food choices are not completely exhaustive of every single possibility you could, have in each column. Now, again, does that have a pretty good start? Yes. Should you probably use mostly template foods? It's probably a good idea, especially when cutting. If you're going to use foods not listed, what's the best way to go about it? Dr. Jen has a little graphic that Tiago made that kind of assumes, 1 ounce meat is going to have, X amount of fat in it. That's totally cool to look at. Here's the deal, especially when cutting, if you want to play it safe and make sure that you could never be wrong with how you count off template food choices, just count everything. Just count everything in the food, and there's literally no way you could ever be wrong. The only thing you might end up doing is cheating yourself out of a few more calories. And if your goal is weight loss and you are under-consuming, sort of under-reporting yourself, the chances that that's going to be a bad thing if you're not losing weight incredibly fast is you lose a bit more weight and it goes a little bit quicker. So for most people, that's not at all going to be a negative. So keep that in mind. That's the simplest way to go about it if you use off-template foods. That was my last point here. I don't see any questions coming in, so I'm just going to scroll through the forums real quick and see if I have anything else, just so we make it at least a half hour. All right. So we'll just I'm just going to go into the diet forums and see what's going on in there. See if we have some questions that are popping up. So there's one on egg whites. Let's take a look. This might be a dumb question. There's no such thing as a dumb question. That's literally what you're paying for in RP Plus, to get answers from Tiago, Tara, or me, James, Mike. You're literally paying for that, so there's no dumb questions. But I once had a coach tell me that you need to have at least one egg yolk with egg whites because the yolk contains an enzyme that allows us to digest the protein in egg whites. True or dumb advice? I've never heard that. Tiago has already answered. Tiago is the man. Hey, Troy, I've never heard such a thing. Very unlikely that's the case. Cheers. So thank you, Tiago. And Troy comes back and later says, that explains why I couldn't find anything to back up his claim. If you hear really weird, elaborate claims from people that be skeptical of them, be skeptical of stuff that you've never heard before. And if you kind of look it up and you don't see anything else on the topic, chances are you can assume that it is make-believe. The question that you need an egg yolk, that's not true. I mean, people eat egg whites all the time. Sometimes you have to keep, the fats lower. And if you do have to keep fats lower, well, guess what? Then that means you can't eat egg yolks. Or, in that meal, fats need to be low. So chances are that's make-believe. You're going to hear lots of crazy things on diet, so just be careful of who you listen to, of course. And if it seems really way out there, be skeptical of it and ask about it. Find people that know what they're talking about. Luckily, you have that at RP, so you don't have to go very far. You're already in RP Plus, but take advantage of it, ask those questions, and help get all the stuff answered. Real quick, that actually leads me to one last point that I'll talk about. But I forget where it was brought up the other day when I was talking about this. A former client of mine emailed me and was asking about it. But in the lean proteins, so things like salmon or beef sometimes tend to be fattier than some of the other choices. Now, most of the time, that's going to all average out because no one's eating the same stuff every single meal, every single day of the week, for weeks on end. It's very, very rare that that would ever happen. It's a good idea to have some variety in there, but a tactic that sometimes we take, and this is pretty rare, it would be the case if you are really far into a diet and you're really struggling to lose weight, you can basically get rid of the fattier types of meats. So, of course, no salmon, and even, no red meat. And so you mostly stick to very, very lean proteins, things like egg whites, protein shakes, maybe even chicken. I think I remember sometimes in reading some contest prep stuff from people that, even chicken would sometimes be a little bit too high fat. So you can imagine just eating egg whites and protein shakes all day. Not be very much fun, but again, that's a very drastic, very extreme measure. Not something we would recommend, but if you do get really far into a cut and things, kind of really stall out and you are a very advanced dieter, that is one step that could be taken. So keep that in mind. All right, so I've covered 6, 7, 8 topics that I have in mind, along with sort of what's new in RP land and all that. So I don't see any questions coming in. So what I'm going to do here is we're probably going to call today's webinar good. And again, so we'll keep it a half hour. If they continue to be no real questions or anything like that, then maybe we'll just keep them a half hour. Because again, there's no point in, the idea is a live Q&A webinar, so people don't, have questions, then let's just keep it short and sweet. And a lot of folks probably appreciate that. So you don't have to sit down and watch a full hour later on. So, all right, I don't see any questions. It's after 4:30. Covered a good bit of stuff, mostly diet-related stuff. But again, people have more questions, keep firing away in the forums, and we'll get to them, Tiago, Tara, or you can leave it in the Q&A thread for James and Mike. And I look through that as well before I do my weekly webinars. So we'll call it that a day for here. And again, keep us posted. Let us know your feedback on stuff. And until next week, we'll see you later, folks. Have a good one. Bye.